Okay. Do I do stuff?
Sure, this is Dawn Lyons. I'll go through roll call first. Julie Weissman Steinbach.
Yeah,
Havander Davis said he would be late today. Ace Patrick. Saber McWhorter Clark said she will not be able to be here today. Vicky Essner.
Present.
Dee Dee Formaster.
Present. Yep.
Linda Voivoda. Peter Whittingham.
Present and correct. Yes, sir, madam.
Thank you. Mary Evilsizer.
Here.
Obioma Officer.
Present.
Jennifer Kane.
I'm here.
And Cheyenne Pasquale.
Present.
We do have quorum, and so you can get started, Julie.
so we're there it is. So I'm sorry.
Did you want me to go ahead and read the public comment section?
Yes.
Okay. No action may be taken upon a matter raised under public comment period unless the matter itself has been specifically included on an agenda as an action item. To provide public comment telephonically, dial 1-253-215-8782 US Tacoma. When prompted to provide the meeting ID, enter 929-904-1434 and passcode 707401. Comments will be allowed at the beginning and end of each day and will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Persons making comments will be asked to begin by stating their name for the record and to spell their last name and provide the secretary with written comments.
It's already public. I'm not seeing it. Are you?
I do not see any hands up.
Many. Okay, so we can so we're here to talk about this. Great.
I'm sorry, I'm getting a request in the chat. Let me just read that out loud. Can you add the captioning too? I can't understand. Okay, I did add captioning. There is a captioner. All you have to do is check the box that you would like that captioning to show. Do you know how to do that? So under when you hover over the 3 buttons at the bottom where it says more, it should have a drop-down menu that you can choose captions and show captions. Okay, great. Okay. Sorry about that, Julie. I think you were on agenda item number 3 for the approval of the minutes from April 10th and 11th.
Yeah. Does anyone have a motion? To approve the minutes?
For the record, this is Mary Evil Sizer. I reviewed the minutes and I don't see any necessary changes. So I make a motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
Can we hear a second?
I saw second, member Peter Whittingham.
All those in favor? The minutes are approved.
Well, Julie, this is Dawn Lyons. Did you want to ask if there's
Yeah.
a discussion?
And then, sorry, I'm kind of out of it, guys. I sincerely apologize.
So is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I think we can take a vote.
All those in favor?
She said all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And of course,
She's,
and the abstention. Great. Okay. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I can't find the minutes. I mean the agenda. I am,
you're looking for the agenda, Julie?
yes, I'm
You want me to
sorry.
go ahead and read the next agenda item?
Yes, please.
Okay, number 4 is for information, member introductions and public introductions from individuals interested in council membership and member announcements. This is Dawn Lyons for the record. I actually want to formally introduce at the next meeting, but mention to the council at this time that as of Tuesday, June 11th, we are onboarding a new youth outreach specialist. Her name is Sejavon Stallworth, and she goes by Vonnie for short. It's her nickname that she prefers. And I was just excited about it. So I wanted to let you know that we're working on her onboarding process right now.
For the interpreter, can you say the name again? Sorry.
Sure, I'll spell it too. Sorry. Sejavon, it's Sejahvon. And her last name is Stallworth, Stallworth. And she goes by Vonnie, Voni.
Yeah, and we Amanda and I met her, and she's fantastic.
Is she with us today, Dawn?
She's not, she's just getting onboarded. So she has some technical things that she has to get through for the state. And then I still have to go over some details with her. She just started on Tuesday, so we're getting there.
Dawn, this is Peter. This is a different name than you discussed the last time, and can you share with us what happened with that previous name that you discussed with us?
Sure, this is Dawn Lyons. Peter, I think maybe you missed when I had mentioned that the last youth outreach specialist that we had hired, after 3 weeks, had given her resignation right away because she found another opportunity. So we have been recruiting since then, and we finally were able to interview candidates in May. And that's when we went ahead and started the process of onboarding this new person, Bonnie.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Don, for the record, this is Mary Eagle-Sizer, and Madam Chair Julie, I just want to say congratulations. One of the toughest tasks right now is the job market, and for nonprofits to be competitive in the job market and to find someone that will stay is really a tough row to hoe at this time with the market as it is. So congratulations to all of us. We look forward to meeting Bonnie.
Thanks, Mary.
Dawn did so much work to make that happen. So I really want to express my appreciation to Dawn in particular.
Thank you. And Jennifer Kane just congratulated us in the chat as well. Thanks, Jennifer. Does anybody else have any announcements or would like to introduce themselves as an interested council member?
This is Dee Dee Formaster for the record. I just want you to know that I'm going to go ahead and extend my membership.
For your second term, correct, Dee Dee?
Right.
Oh, we're twinsies. Julie wasn't stuck up for the record. I just submitted my paperwork to extend for a second term.
Margaret, are you on the Zoom?
I'm here.
Did you want to
Margaret,
introduce
Yeah.
yourself?
let's see. I know it's dark, sorry. I'm Margaret Marcucci, and I put my application in. Don knows I did. And it's just a matter of coming back right now.
Margaret's from the rural areas
Mhm.
out in the Elko area.
Yes, I am, and busy as a bee.
This is Dawn Lyons. As I understand it, there's also Evander Davis had put in his renewal application for his second term a while back, but you know, the governor's office can take a little bit of time sometimes, so just waiting.
When you're the governor, you can take as much time as you need.
From what I understand, they have a lot of boards and commissions that they have to appoint to, so they go through cycles. And sometimes it takes a little while to come back around to us. But does anybody else have any other announcements or important membership issues that they'd like to bring up during this agenda item? Julie, would you like me to go ahead and read the next agenda item?
Yeah, I can.
I did email you the agenda again, so it should be in your inbox shortly.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, so on to agenda number 5 for possible action, discussion and possible approval of the revised draft federal fiscal years 25 through 27 state plan for independent living, or SPIL, to be submitted to the Administration for Community Living. Julie, may I?
Yes.
Thank you. This is Dawn.
After this,
Sorry.
after this, I'll be back on track.
No worries. So I received some comments back from the designated state entity, and I replied to some of those comments on what I believe the SILC would want, and I included that revised version of this bill draft with those comments in our materials, and I emailed them out to members. It was really recent, so I don't know if everybody had a chance to go through those, but I do know that the Centers for Independent Living did respond as well, and I also included that material and emailed that. What I think would be best, and everybody can let me know if this sounds good, is I'm just going to go through the details of this bill draft as it stands now with those comments, so that we can discuss those comments as we go, and I can give my feedback on them, and you guys can give yours as well, and maybe we can come to an agreement and hopefully get this ready so we can submit it by the end of this month. So does that sound like a good plan to everybody?
Yes.
Should I share my screen? Would that make it easier?
That sounds great to me, Dawn.
Okay. I think I'm going to start with the DSE comments and my replies, and then we'll go back and touch on the Centers for Independent Living comments, if that's okay with everyone.
That's good.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes,
Okay.
I can.
All right. So the first suggested change, a lot of these changes, so just an upfront disclosure. This is the umpteenth revision that I had done based on different needs on background discussions with ACL and the DSE and the Centers for Independent Living, and depending on what our guidance was from ACL. So I did kind of, I don't want to say rush through it, but I did miss a few things on my way. So some of the suggestions from both the Centers for Independent Living and the DSE were much appreciated suggested changes, because they were, a lot of them were just things I had missed when I was going through to revise. So starting with the first suggested change here, where it says 2 Part C Centers for Independent Living, 1 Part B supported organization. The suggested change says working towards section 725 compliance with the DSE instead of organization compliant with section 725. And it's really just a clarification that they're working on 725 compliance, and that has not yet been established according to ACL guidelines, recent guidelines. Now, according to old ACL guidelines, we weren't wrong, but then ACL came back and clarified, and so now we had to update that. So thank you for that suggested change. That makes more sense, and I will, as long as everybody's okay with that, which you can give me your feedback now if you disagree, but otherwise I'll go ahead and make that change or implement that suggested change.
Don, this is Lisa Bonney from Northern Madison Center for Independent Living, for the record. Are we going to wait to make our comments when you bring up our edits?
If that's okay, just to keep it clear
Of
for
course.
everybody, if that's all right. Yeah, I mean, I know you guys made several comments on this section too, and we can cross that bridge after this. How's that? As we scroll down, it says the Rural Center for Independent Living was evaluated for 725 compliance by the DSE in federal fiscal year 24 and established compliance for federal fiscal year 25. The suggested addition was preliminary compliance, which I don't have a problem with. If anyone else does, please speak up. As I scroll down, the next suggested change was just the terminology under Objective 2A, Item 6. It says SILC will work directly with Aging and Disability Services Division's regional representatives to educate at least 5 rural medical facilities regarding the needs of people with disabilities and provide sensitivity training by September 30th, 2026. The suggested change was to change representatives to coordinators, which is the official name of their title of their positions. So there's really nothing to argue with there. And then the next one. Let me, Cheyenne suggested that under Objective 2B, item number 4, that the SILC will review and evaluate the Aging and Disability Services Division Olmsted Plan and our current relationship with our designated state entity in federal fiscal year 25 to ensure there is mutual support for Nevadans with disabilities in the IL network. She suggested that maybe that was 2 separate indicators, and I agree with that. And so if it's okay with everyone else, I'll go ahead and separate that out into 2. Does anybody have a problem with me doing that? Great, okay. So as we scroll down to Objective 3C, indicator number 3 is the SILC will evaluate its relationship with the DSE and make determination by September 30th, 2025 regarding maintaining the current DSE or establishing a new DSE by September 30th, 2027. And Cheyenne was questioning whether that was a duplicative indicator, and I did not feel that it was, since our other indicator that we just mentioned was more of a it was more based on how we thought it was addressing the needs of people with disabilities rather than our relationship, which is separate. And then under number 5, Lisa, do you have a question?
Actually, I have an observation. Did we discuss number 2? Where you've got,
Yeah, no, thank you. So number 2 says the DSE will follow federal guidelines regarding SILC staff supervision as defined in the updated memorandum of understanding. It was suggested to cross out the part that said, so it did say the DSE will follow federal guidelines regarding SILC staff supervision according to council policy and not according to DSE authority as defined in the updated memorandum of understanding to eliminate any contradictory or confusing information that exists in the 2021 MOU. The suggestion was to remove according to council policy and not according to the DSE authority. I didn't write in there, but my suggestion would be to leave in according to council policy, but go ahead and remove and not according to DSE authority as defined in the updated memorandum of understanding.
Yeah.
Is that?
I like that.
This is Cheyenne. That makes sense to me too.
Okay.
this is Lisa. May I ask a question, please?
Please.
What's driving this? I'm not exactly sure I understand what the goal is.
We felt like we needed clarification and that moving forward, we needed to mark that clarification so that there's no question about it, because it has come up in question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now on to number 5, the DSE will support the council with so the recommended language, it used to say with fully state funded 3.0 full-time full-time employees throughout federal fiscal years 25, 26, and 27 of this bill after legislative approval. The suggested change from the DSE was to put, the DSE will support the council with staffing after legislative approval of the federal fiscal year 26 through 27 budget. The SILC has requested 3.0 state FTE consisting of 1 social service program specialist 3 and 2 program officer 1s as the council's needs have continued to increase. I have no problem with that change in language. It sounds more clear that way to me. Does anybody else have an issue with that change?
For the record, this is Mary Eagle-Sizer. I don't have an issue with it at all. Just for clarification, the staff, would they then be state employees or?
Well, the staff is already state
Okay,
state staff or
Okay.
DSE staff. It's just that we're asking for more, and we're asking for more support from the
Thank-
state.
thank you.
In other words, we had discussed in the past that we wanted to make the youth outreach specialist a permanent position and to equalize or make our positions equivalent to that of other councils that are similar to ours.
Understood. Thank you.
And then there was a question about the staff salaries from the state funds. And it was really just that it was like, well, do we put it in or don't we put it in? Because we don't have legislative approval yet. But from what ACL guidance has told us, I explained that we've been informed that we should put in what our needs are. And if for some reason legislature doesn't approve it, we can file an amendment at a later time. So that's why I left it in there. Down to the description of the financial plan narrative. There are some suggested edits. They're mostly technical edits, but I would like to, since John Rosenland is here, if you don't mind, Julie, if I can ask him to go ahead and speak a little bit about our description, because he gave me some suggested language changes that aren't included in any of the edits that we have available to us as a material. And I'd like him to explain what his thoughts were behind that before I go ahead and read his suggestion, if that's okay.
Yes, please, John.
John, are you? Oh, okay.
Are we live?
We are.
Yes.
There we go. Initially, when I was looking through the description here, and my point was that in reading how this language says in particular, it's referring to the AT for Independent Living program as the DSE's program. My point is that just because it is a program that's primarily funded by through state funds now, that's a program that was created by the Independent Living Council and with the assistive technology thing as well. But let's leave them out of it. This program was built through the Independent Living. It is your independent living program. It's not your only independent living program. Any service in your plan is your independent living program. So be cautious in doing that and trying to label it as a state agency's program. It's your program, you built it, right? That's where the policy for that program came from, is from the SILC at that time. There has been no major change since that, but any major change in policy has went through the SILC for guidance, verification, and so on. Don't need clarification, but going back to years past, a lot of deliberation was done when some of the limitations were put into policy, like, not doing modifications in somebody's house a second or third time if they've moved. there's certain things in that policy, and they were always vetted through the Independent Living Council. And just as I was reading this description, it makes it almost look like your spill is making it sound like it's a separate thing. And I don't believe that that's what's meant when, when ACL calls it a state independent living program. All of your things under your independent living plan. It doesn't matter who's funding it. It doesn't matter if you're not even putting a dollar in there. That program is fulfilling a service for individuals with disabilities in the state. So I did provide Don with, it's just part of our program overview that describes what the AT for Independent Living program is and what specific services it provides, and what those gaps are would need to be kind of added to that to describe what that gap is and why there is it's an underserved population if those resources don't exist. Does that sound accurate to what I'd sent you, Don?
It does. Thank you, John, for explaining that. You're much better at describing that than I am. And so if that's okay with everyone else, John did send me some suggested language to include instead, and to kind of finesse that language a little bit so that it doesn't sound or mislead anyone to think that it's a state program and not an independent living program from the SILC. And so I'll go ahead and read that to you if you're ready for that.
John Roseland, for the record, one last thing would be your narrative should describe those funding sources, and I sent those to Don. There's the legislatively approved amount for 2025. Much like Don referenced earlier, you don't know what the legislature might do in 2026 and 2027. But historically, when I was involved with the SILC, we put that funding amount in there for all 3 years. If you need to do an amendment, whether it was more money came in or less went out, you could do that. And then there's also a piece in there that's funded by the Assistive Technology Act, and that historically, I believe, went into your financial plan. In this narrative, it would be described in there, and I think it actually went into the plan.
Thank you, John. This is Dawn Lyons, and I totally meant to include those amounts in our budget as well, and I didn't, so I appreciate you bringing that up and reminding me. And so I've got those amounts that you sent me here. Let me read those off to everyone here so everybody's on the same page. So those amounts would be the state funds of 1,330,977 and 50,000 from the AT program for each of those years, and that's what we would expect. So thanks, John, for that. Now I'll go ahead and read the language that was suggested by John that we include. Part of our Nevada State Independent Living programs include the Assistive Technology for Independent Living Program, or AT for IL. The program has been in existence for over 25 years and included in Nevada's first Olmstead plan. The AT for IL program is a statewide program that supports an individual's choice to live in their community with the use of assistive technology, or AT. The program's focus is on removing essential daily living barriers such as transferring, personal hygiene, toileting, bathing, meal preparation, eating, mobility, home access, communication, and transportation. The program can help individuals define their independent living goals and determine the appropriate assistive technology needed to care for themselves or receive care in their homes and in their community. The program has resources to provide a variety of AT when no other resources are possible. Individuals that are currently in a care facility or at high risk of placement in a facility can be prioritized if funding is available for the services that are necessary for them to live independently in the community. The AT services that are typically supported include home access modifications, vehicle access modifications, durable medical equipment, mobility devices, transferring devices, visual devices, communication devices, and basically AT that is needed to remove essential daily living barriers. Services are provided by community partners through sub-awarded funding. Funding consists of Part B, Assistive Technology Act, and state funding. And of course, I would include those amounts. So if it's okay with everyone, I will include that language and make sure that that flows correctly with that included language. Anyone disagree? Okay, keep going. Hope I don't make anyone dizzy while I'm scrolling. The next suggested change, I'm gonna hold off on the DSE's suggestion until we get to the CIL's suggestion because they wanted a different change to that altogether. So we can discuss that in the next section. So the section under part 3.2, expansion and adjustment of network, there was a paragraph that I accidentally left in when I did some revisions to change language about RCAL being a Part B center. Taking that language out, I forgot to remove the information in this paragraph that says the state independent living program is overseen by the DSE and administered by community partners selected through a competitive subaward process every 2 years. If the DSE receives additional funding through the legislative process for the state independent living program, these funds will be distributed to RCIL based on the statewide caseload and wait list with the SILC's recommendation. I meant to remove that just because that was what that was applicable when we have our RCIL listed as a Part B center. It's no longer applicable if they're not listed as a Part B center. So is everyone okay if I take that out? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. Oh,
No
go ahead.
objections.
Go ahead, Dee Dee.
I realize that you have gotten rid of our Part B certification. But are you removing all support from the center?
No, so the SILC's intentions is not to remove support for RCIL, but the CILs do make some suggestions that we can discuss in the next section that I believe do make sense. So we'll talk about that at that point. But no, it is not the SILC's intention to take away any support for RCIL.
Okay, I'm just making sure because, you know, we've been around for 25 years and it was my hope that in joining together with the SILC, that we would all work together, although that has not been the case. I'm still hoping for a resolution in that area because we all need to work together for the betterment of the disability community and disability services. If we don't work together, the disability community is the one that is going to be drastically affected. And so that's my concern, is that we all work together because the disability community needs to be able to access services so they have a better quality of life out there. It's tough out there right now, and it's really tough for people with disabilities. So all I'm saying is that we all need to work together.
Thank you, Dee Dee.
Thank you.
Peter, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, not at this time.
Oh, okay, thank you. I agree, Dee Dee. This is Dawn Lyons again, and if everyone is okay with me removing that section, I will continue. Anybody opposed? Okay. So under section 4, the designated state entity, I had mentioned that it was pretty unacceptable that since I had sent this entire section to the DSE representative back in December, that we didn't receive any word whatsoever until I had to fill in the blanks from the previous year and what I thought should go in there. And then we got some feedback at the last minute. That was noted that they understood that. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. And under fiscal management, there's a paragraph where it says, fiscal management draws federal funds and prepares related reports, processes payments and reimbursements on behalf of the SILC in accordance with their budget, completes quarterly and annual state fiscal 425 reports, provides required non-federal match and non-federal funds for any disallowed expenditures, and certifies annually all expenditures have been recorded appropriately in state accounting systems. The suggested change was to remove and non-federal funds for any disallowed expenditures. I totally agree with that removal. It doesn't come across appropriate. It's not what it was, how it was intended to come across. That's not what I meant by that. But yeah, it did come across as something that I didn't mean to say. So I totally agree with that removal of that section. And then an addition after that says, as the grantee for Part B funds, the DSC monitors all expenditures to ensure they're in line with state and federal policies, procedures, and regulations. I don't know how you guys feel about that, that addition. I think it's unnecessary, but you know, if they want to add that section to it, if that's what they believe they're required to do. Is everybody okay with that addition?
Could you read it again, please?
Sure. As the grantee for Part B funds, the DSE monitors all expenditures to ensure they are in line with state and federal policies, procedures, and regulations.
This is Peter. It seems to me that that's a note for our ensuring accountability side. As my part, I don't see any problem in having that notation there as well.
Thank you, Peter. This is Dawn. I do believe that that's how ACL describes it as well, that they're responsible for. So I don't,
Yeah.
even though it almost sounds like an overreach, it really isn't if you really read the exact language of
Yeah.
it. So I'm okay with that if everyone else is.
For the record, this is Mary Sizer. Bottom line, I think something has to be there to be audited. With the
Yeah.
auditors look at everything, and that is one of the best ways to show accountability.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so anyone disagree with that addition?
Is there accountability for Part C centers too?
Not in the spill. The Part C centers accountability is by ACL. It's between ACL and the Part C centers. So it wouldn't be included in our state plan. Especially under this section where it's under section DSE assurances for administration and staffing. Any other questions or concerns? Okay. So there is another addition that was added underneath what I had copied and pasted from the last bill, I believe. They added the ADSD and the SILC have established a memorandum of understanding to outline specific roles and responsibilities related to the administration of Part B funding as it relates to the business operations of the SILC and the state/federal law and policies. The MOU may be terminated by either party with 30 days notice. It may be updated by either party at any time based on mutual agreement. Additionally, the SILC has established a subaward to a fiscal agent to support expenditures that cannot be completed within the state's processes. This subaward is subject to state and fiscal laws related to the proper use of funds and is provided with the oversight in the same manner as any other subaward made under ADSD and the SILC. See section 4.4, which is 2 sections down, and that one is grant processes and distributions of funds. So it just describes that process more in depth. And honestly, that I don't know how SILC feels about that agreement about giving either party 30 days notice to be terminated, to terminate our MOU, or that we could update it if we have mutual agreement. I don't know if that language sounds okay to the SILC. I think that, you know, it may be updated by either party at any time based on mutual agreement. That sounds almost a little bit prescriptive, like we have to both agree if we want to update it. But I do agree that it has to be agreed upon by both parties if we update it. So I don't know if we want to change the language just a little bit, or if we think that language is okay and actually describes that okay. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Don, for the record, this is Mary Sizer. The 30 days notice is pretty standard protocol. And my question is, does either party want to change it? That's what the question is.
Well,
It
it
makes
is,
sense if you agree.
it is in our indicators for our goals for this upcoming spill that we will review it and determine if a revision needs to be made.
Okay, well, if it's a goal, then
Yeah, I think that's why it makes sense for them to include it in their section, so. But I mean, are we splitting hairs by thinking that maybe it may be prescriptive that we both have a mutual agreement before we can update it, or is it okay the way it's written because it's more of a, it can be updated as long as we both agree it? You know what I mean? Does it sound like that to everyone?
Don, this is Peter. It just seemed to me that both sentences, which should be connected, are separated, and so the thought is separated. And so maybe to connect the last sentence with the previous, the MOU may be terminated by either party within 30 days, providing that there is mutual agreement on both parties. And so that would just clarify that first segment as opposed to how it is now written. It seemed to be two different thoughts completely.
I see what you're saying. So what if we change the language to the MOU may be terminated or updated by either party with 30 days notice upon mutual agreement?
Right.
Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah, that sounds easy.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make that change.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter.
Is that okay with Cheyenne?
This is Cheyenne for the record, and I apologize, I was shaking my head.
Okay. Okay, so I'll go ahead and move on to the next. So, state imposed requirements, it used to say non-applicable because the last spill said that, so I transferred it over to this one. The DSE would like to add some state imposed requirements. And those are written as the SILC has chosen to utilize DSE staff per 45 CFR 1329.15E. The SILC shall supervise and evaluate its staff and other personnel consistent with state law. As DSE staff, adherence to all state administrative policies and regulations related to personnel, information technology, and fiscal processes must be followed by SILC staff, which may create a conflict with the SILC business or operations. In the event conflicts occur, the DSE and the SILC chair will meet to resolve conflicts to the extent allowed by state law and policies, as well as the federal clearances. In the event conflicts cannot be resolved at the organizational level, the Deputy Attorney General, or DAG, will provide a legal opinion to determine the resolution. I actually suggested to reword that with the exact CFR that's listed, which says the SILC shall, consistent with state law, supervise and evaluate its staff and other personnel. as may be necessary to carry out its functions under this section. And then to follow up with that, instead of that language that they proposed, I propose that after the CFR quote, they say, where SILC has established policies relevant to situations in which state policy interferes or creates a conflict with SILC business, SILC policy shall be followed in regards to staff per guidance received from ACL. In the event conflicts cannot be resolved at the organizational level, federal authority, ACL, will assist in conflict resolution. This is the only way I believe SILC can agree to this addition. I made an assumption there that that's the only way that SILC would agree to that, because otherwise they're basically stating the exception is that they can override what the federal guidelines say and use the DAG as an intermediary, which is of course we all have access to, but may potentially be biased since it's the DAG working for Aging and Disability Services, and instead use our actual federal authority administration for community living. So I thought it was more appropriate to add that as the ACL would be.
Did you put that language at the end in writing at all?
Say that again, Peter?
Did you put that language in writing at the end? I didn't see your revision. That
it's in the
this
comment.
is the only way that we would.
So it's actually on the side in the comment on the track changes.
My thoughts are that that last sentence need not be there.
Oh yeah, no, the last sentence was after the quote. Sorry. That was
okay, so it's not a part of what you submitted.
Right.
Okay.
Julie Weiss gets stuck on the record. Before you read your suggestion, my thought was, where is ACL in all this?
Yeah,
So
that was my thought too.
I personally like Dawn's suggestion.
Now, Cheyenne, I know that you had come back with a counter suggestion to that reply that I gave, but I'm not sure if at this time you agree with my suggested change to that language, or if you'd still like to express another change to that.
No, I think it's good. I think it makes sense in deferring to ACL when there's a conflict, right? I think in my suggested edit, we did say that we may include the Deputy Attorney General in any conflict resolution if needed, like in addition to ACL, right? Because our Deputy Attorney General is responsible for supporting us in following law, right?
Sure.
And so, but to me, that's kind of tomato. It could be splitting hairs. And I think with revising that very first sentence to quote the actual CFR, I think we had kind of paraphrased that section of the CFR. I think that is good. Jeff, do you have anything to add to that? I don't want to speak entirely on behalf of ADSD, but.
So thank you. This is Jeff Duggan for the record. Yeah, I think the reason that was important for us to have it in there, and back to your comment, Don, that the DAG is theoretically neutral. They don't work for ADSD. They represent the state, and ADSD is one of the agencies, but that's who we have to go to when we have certain kind of issues. They're like our ACL in this type of scenario, I guess. So regardless if it gets in there or not, we still have to bring them to the table should something arise to that level. But doesn't necessarily have to be in writing. So what you quoted to me would be fine as well. Just know that they are our quote unquote lawyer, and that's who we have to go through to resolve conflicted issues.
Thank you. This is Dawn Lyons. I actually appreciate that clarification. I didn't realize they didn't work for Aging and Disability Services, but they were a neutral party. But I did agree, I do understand that we all have access. We have access, and Aging and Disability Services has access to the DAG for legal matters, and that we can obviously, consult with them about legal matters at any time. So that I wasn't arguing with that part at all. But yeah, that makes sense, that what you said to explain it to the council properly. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think I would just add, in our conversations, we all can agree there's a little bit of gray area, right? Because the SILC directs the activities of the SILC personnel. They supervise the SILC personnel, but they're still state employees at the end of the day, and there's still a responsibility that we have to those team members and that they have to the state, right? And so even in our conversations with ACL, they have said it's not always black and white, and so we work through those conflicts and try to come to a resolution that is best for everybody. So
Absolutely. This is Dawn Lyons. Absolutely. We do have to consult with ACL because, like you said, those gray areas aren't always easy to determine, which way is more accurate, right? So yeah, ACL would be the authority on that. So as long as everyone's okay with the change in language, I can even include something like, we may contact the DAG for advice if you want me to add it, but otherwise, let me know if you want me to. For sure, I can put that in there, and then we can approve that suggested change by me with it.
I think for the sake of fairness, we should include the DAG.
We should or shouldn't?
Should, along with
Okay.
Along with ACL.
Okay, sounds good. I will add that to that. And then is everyone okay with if I add the DAG as an option to what my suggested changes were, going into that section?
Yes, of course, minus the last sentence.
Oh, right, of course, Peter, just the quoted section. Okay, great. I'll go on.
Can I, before you go further,
Yeah.
Dawn, can I then take you back to the provision that we talk about the MOU just above, where we modify the MOU and we talk about the 30 days. As I was looking at that, reflecting on that, I thought, well, what if there's no mutual agreement? And having seen that last sentence with the provision, I'm going to move and ask that we add also that provision after it comes to 30 days with mutual agreement, and then we add as another sentence, if there's any, if it's not resolved, then the DAG will be consulted for an opinion as to the resolution. So at least in case we don't agree on the changes, because it requires us provide 30-day notice as to depending on mutual agreement. But what if we don't agree? So I think it would be good to add that one sentence there in terms of the DAG resolving resolution.
Or ACL. So this is Dawn Lyons, Peter. That is a fantastic suggestion. And I was kind of wondering that myself, but you articulated it very well.
Yeah.
The only difference that I would say is that in the event there is no agreement, that ACL could mediate so that we could come to a final agreement.
No, but go directly to the DAG. Let the DAG be, the DAG as the neutral party in this would be perhaps the source or the entity that would come in and look at both and say, okay, well, here's what I think should be done. So I think it.
What if we included both? What if we said in the event that no agreement we can't come to an agreement, that we will consult with the DAG and ACL to resolve our differences or whatever?
But the ACL,
Like-
the ACL would perhaps be looking to the DAG for guidance, I'm thinking.
No.
So why would there be two levels?
No, ACL will be giving us the federal law
Okay.
version, and they will be giving us a federal perspective on law, and the DAC
Okay.
will be giving us the state law perspective. So
Okay.
both would apply, I think,
Okay.
but I think if I add both, that's a wonderful idea, and I appreciate that suggestion. What is
I
every,
agree.
yeah,
Okay.
okay. Does anybody disagree with adding that? Okay. Perfect. I will move on.
Okay.
So down under, what section is this? Grant process and distribution of funds. Cheyenne just corrected a few terminology issues that I didn't have correct, and I am perfectly fine with those terminology changes. Is I didn't really look up the policy when I put it in there. I think I just copied and pasted from last year's, and I guess some terminology has changed since then. So that makes sense that they would correct the policy since it's their own. The one other part was they added a section at the very end that says the ADSD auditor will perform a full audit of subawards within 2 years after the project end date. I questioned that if it was a new policy, how come we weren't informed? And Cheyenne responded that it's been a policy and it's been in their policy for their grant recipients, and that, you know, there's a lot of legal language in there. So I'm sure that's why I missed it. But if it's been in there, I believe her, it's been in there. And so if they want to include that, I don't have a problem with their changes or their additions in that section. Does anybody else?
Well, this is Cheyenne, if I may, if we could actually move that sentence to the end of the preceding paragraph, where we changed the language on titles. Because I think what prompted me to add that was we had reference to the fiscal auditors. But there's kind of two separate processes that happen, right? There's the monitoring during active awards, and then there's the final audit, you know, within the two periods. So it was really just a clarification piece, but it should be in that preceding paragraph.
Okay, so the paragraph that starts with finally the SILC executive director, and just put that the ADSD auditor at that sentence at the end of that paragraph. Is that what you meant? Cheyenne?
My apologies, Cheyenne, for the record, I was talking to myself on mute. That is correct.
Okay. Is everybody else okay with me moving that to where Cheyenne suggested?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. We'll keep going. So the next section is oversight process for Part B funds. It had said the designated DSE representative provides technical assistance to the SILC executive director as needed to ensure compliance with state regulations and funding formulas for staff salaries. All DSE positions must adhere to state of Nevada administrative laws and policies, including those it actually had said that, so this is my response. I crossed off that section. So it had said the designated DSE representative provides technical assistance to the SILC executive director as needed to ensure compliance with state regulations and funding formulas for staff salaries. And then Cheyenne suggested I change or I strike out funding formulas for staff salaries and include federal regulations. So it would say, and then she added some information. So I'll just read what she suggested. The designated DSE representative provides technical assistance to the SILC executive director and SILC chair as needed to ensure compliance with state regulations and federal regulations. All DSE positions must adhere to state of Nevada administrative laws and policies, including those related to personnel, information technology, and fiscal expenditures. State human resources, information technology support, and fiscal staff are responsible for ensuring compliance with all state administrative laws and policies. The DSE will work closely with the SILC chair in the event a conflict arises between state laws / policies and SILC business operations to resolve such conflicts to the degree possible within state law and policy, as well as the federal assurances. I suggested that we strike out the majority of that suggested addition. And I did have so basically what I did was I copied and pasted that section from the last bill, and it didn't have anywhere near that amount of information in it. It really just said the designated state representative provides technical assistance to the SILC executive director as needed to ensure compliance with regulations. And then I had added for funding and funding formulas because I've had difficulty getting that information in the past. So I wanted to put it in there. It's like we could actually put it in writing that we would get that information from the state when we need it, so that we can plan our budget correctly. I don't think that we need to add all that information because it's really just duplicating information from above where we stated if there's a disagreement that we will, work with ACL and the DAG to resolve it. I think that this is overreaching in that it's basically saying that, again, these would take precedence over what the federal guidelines say. And the federal guidelines is what we really follow. And then of course we're following state law and federal regulations, but if there's some kind of a conflict or gray area, we would naturally go to ACL or the DAG or both to get clarification. So I don't think this is necessary. And I think it's more than what we want in our spill as far as what the oversight process for Part B funds is. It really doesn't seem to fit into that space, in my opinion.
And this is Cheyenne. For the record, we did accept that suggestion to reject that addition.
Okay, as long
What
as
addition, Cheyenne?
all that stuff.
All of the stuff I just read about the state staff following state or adhering to state of Nevada administrative laws and policies and all this
As
I just
long
read.
as long as the DSA is okay with it.
Yep.
Let's strike it and go on.
Yeah, they did come back and say
Yeah,
they agreed that that was fine to remove.
that's what it says. So if they agree, we should just move on.
Okay,
Did you see my message, Dawn?
your message in chat.
I have to leave it.
Oh, okay, you have to leave at 3. I can take over after you leave if we have to, if that's
Okay.
cool. And then I also see a message from the Nevada Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities that says DAG is not neutral. That's kind of what I thought. So thanks for that clarification. And then let me go ahead and go down to the next section.
Hi, how you doing? Good, Ron. How are you?
Is that Margaret? Margaret, can you mute yourself, please?
You see the news?
What?
It's not me, Don.
Oh, okay, I think that's Linda.
Oh, no, I didn't see it. Sorry, I'm in a meeting.
Carol, can you mute Linda for me, please? I can't while I'm sharing my screen. The next section is our section where it says statewide independent living council. The establishment, it was suggested to change all that language, and I actually came back and replied that I used the same language that we used before and used our language from our executive order. So my recommendations was that we don't change any of that language at this time. And leave it the way I had originally drafted it, that the SILC and the spill work group had agreed to before. And really it was just, it was more about taking out nonprofit information and stuff, but that's all in our executive order. So I used the language from our executive order. So if the DSE and everyone else is okay, that this is our description of how we were established, and we go ahead and leave it in as it was originally drafted. Let me know if you have a problem with that. Otherwise, I can read what the suggested change was. It's a little different.
This is Cheyenne for the record. We met and discussed it and we're okay. We offered that suggested edit to reflect how it is actually structured, but totally fine with the rejection.
Yeah, and that makes sense. What you suggested, it's just not reflective of what our executive order says, and that's how we were established, and that's how it states we were established. So we really have to be consistent with how we were established in this section. So that was why I thought we should leave it as it is. But I do appreciate the thought on that behind it. Does everyone agree that it should be consistent with what our executive order says?
Yes. Sure. I
Okay, I'll go ahead and move on. So under our resource plan, there was just some language to clarify what it had originally been drafted in there. And it says the SILC has requested ADSD pay 100% of the SILC salaries. The percentage of salaries for federal fiscal year 25, 26, and 27 paid by the state will be determined in the legislative process in federal fiscal year 25. It's much more clear that way, in my opinion, so I appreciate the suggestion. If everyone else agrees, I'll go ahead and change that language to reflect what was suggested. It's just a little bit less wordy. Does anyone disagree with that change?
no. Nothing.
Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay. So there's a section where, let's see, under maintenance of SILC and how we'll maintain SILC over the course of the spill. We are describing where it says neither the center staff nor the DSE shall be members of the interview panel when we're hiring new staff to avoid any conflict of interest or undue influence on the SILC. We've had that in our spill in the past. I copied and pasted it because it still applies. Cheyenne was questioning it. She said she's waiting for the confirmation that it doesn't violate state law. If it does, we were violating it during our last spill too, but I don't think we are, because that's how we're ensuring there's no disruption in our business and how we hire our staff as a council. So as long as we don't get word back from Cheyenne that it's against the law somehow, I think we should go ahead and leave that in.
And this is Cheyenne for the record. I did confirm that section is fine, so good to go there.
Okay.
Our HR person has some suggested edits just to clean up language in this section a little bit, and I can read those to you if that is the most helpful, or
Sure.
I can put it in chat.
If you would read them, that would be great.
Okay. So at the top sentence, the suggested edit would be if you pick up the sentence at and an additional SILC member.
Where are you talking about?
I'm sorry, in that same paragraph.
Okay, at the beginning of that paragraph?
Yes, at the beginning of that paragraph. So,
Oh, okay. I see that where it says in the event a new executive director must be hired under state employment, the council chair, vice chair, and an additional SILC member.
yes. So will be members of the interview panel and will select and hire staff in accordance with state law and personnel policies. And then strike out, will make the final determination regarding who will be hired for the position.
Okay,
And the reason for that is like, because as DSE staff, people have to go through background checks, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And if something came back that would prevent us from hiring that person, then we'd potentially have a conflict that we'd have to
that
discuss.
this is Dawn Lyons. That makes sense to me. If you wouldn't mind getting that language to me, and if no one else has a problem with that, I can change that.
And then she suggested also just one sentence that would be right after that sentence, and it would be the SILC will interview, select, and hire staff in manner that is consistent with federal and state non-discrimination laws, including NAC 284.
I believe that's important to include. That sounds like a technical issue that we should include.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, unless other SILC members have an issue with that, does anyone have a problem with me including HR language in there that they've provided, that Cheyenne shared?
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Cheyenne. If you could get that to me, I will make that change.
I will get that to you.
Thanks. And then at the end, so it was suggested that where it says secretarial staff support will be provided by the DSE to take meeting minutes, arrange travel, and maintain files for the SILC as needed. And will remain under the executive director's supervision according to SILC indicators and assurances by ACL. The suggested change was to add at a minimum 0.25 FTE secretarial staff support will be provided by the DSE to take meeting minutes, arrange travel, and maintain files for the SILC as needed. And SILC duties will be directed by the SILC executive director according to SILC indicators and assurances by ACL. The only thing that my response to that was, I like the last part of it change because it sounds more clear, but according to ACL's instructions, our guidance, we were told that we should be putting into our spill what our needs are, and not like what last spill said or what last spill determines. So you know, we didn't specify how much time the secretarial staff support would be provided by the DSE, because we're asking for a full-time position to take the place of, you know, or we're asking for more positions basically. So we don't want to minimize our staff support. So I did recommend that we don't include at a minimum 0.25 FTE, and that we just specify, you know, secretarial staff support will be provided. And then we can flesh out those differences later. But that SILC duties will be directed by the SILC executive director. That made sense to me. It sounded more clear, and I did like that suggested change. So if everyone is okay with it, we will leave it as secretarial staff support will be provided by the DSE to take meeting minutes, arrange travel, and maintain files for the SILC as needed. And SILC duties will be directed by the SILC executive director, but according to SILC indicators and assurances by ACL. Is everyone okay with that?
This is Cheyenne for the record. I just want to say the reason we suggested the 0.25 FTE is a trepidation of being able to meet that requirement if your SILC staff are not available for whatever reason, if they leave or go on extended medical leave or whatever. So that's where it was coming from. We completely understand the growth that the SILC has experienced and the hard work that the SILC is undergoing, but it was a little hard to be able to say, like, we can guarantee unlimited support should that need arrive. So that's where it came from. But I'll leave it up to the SILC to have further conversation before I chime in anymore.
So this is Dawn Lyons, and just to be clear, it's not that I am arguing that we need more than that staff support. I'm arguing, well, yeah, we did ask for more staff support, but the secretarial staff support is going to fluctuate anyway. So why even say you're going to provide 25%? You know what I mean? Like, we'll take what we can get when we need it, and you'll just provide the support, right, where we need it. So it's not necessarily limiting anyone, but it's not minimizing or maximizing it either, if that makes sense. I hope that made sense and I didn't just confuse everybody. Does anybody have any thoughts on that or opinions?
This is Linda Voivoda for the record. Finally got here. Sorry for the lateness. I have one question about the staff. Or how many are you wanting to bring on to help with the secretarial areas?
So this is Dawn Lyons for the record. For the last 3 years or so, we've been asking for legislative approval for our 2 staff positions to be changed into 2 different staff positions full-time, and that we add an additional full-time position to bring on our youth outreach specialist as an actual classified employee instead of a contractor. And so that would also be full-time, because we really need those 3 full-time positions to function properly with how we've grown. Does that answer your question, Linda?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So does it make a sense to everyone to just remove the at a minimum 0.25 FTE and go ahead and include the other changes that Cheyenne suggested to make the sentence more clear?
Aye.
I agree.
Okay.
So Dawn, if I may, sorry.
Yeah.
Just so I'm clear, just Jeff Duck for the record, can you reread how that's going to play out? I just want to make sure that we're clear, because I want to make this statement to the SILC. We do support you with your increased infrastructure. We don't control the legislative process.
Right.
We only can advocate just like you. So that's why we're making sure we're super careful that we're not overextending ourselves. Because if you all know, you can't back the legislature to a corner and say, well, we're telling you because you have to. It's that we're trying to make sure that it's placed into your spill. So we're realistic and hopeful, but we don't control the process. So if you don't mind, just reread how that's going to play out one more time, please.
Absolutely. This is Dawn Lyons. Secretarial staff support will be provided by the DSE to take meeting minutes, arrange travel, and maintain files for the SILC as needed. And SILC duties will be directed by the SILC Executive Director according to SILC indicators and assurances by ACL.
This is Jeff Duncan. Thank you for that. And so Cheyenne, do you think that we're okay with that floated language and make sure that we're not backing ourselves into a corner?
This is Cheyenne for the record, and I think so based on our conversations with leadership last week.
This is Jeff Duncan. Thank you again.
Okay, so you guys are in agreement with that then?
So this is Jeff Duncan, if you need the DSC to go on record and say, yes, we agree.
Okay, thank you. Does any other SILC member have any thoughts on that, or are there any opposed to that change? Okay, I will move on. I believe that's the last of the DSE suggested changes. And before we go ahead and take a vote on that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to bring up the Centers for Independent Living suggested changes that they sent after that. I think Julie had to leave, so I'm going to go ahead and pick up the chairing moving forward, and we do still have quorum since Linda is here. Thank you, Linda. All right, let me go ahead and pull up the other suggested changes by the CILs. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, I can.
Great. Okay, so in the first paragraph of our executive summary, Mary made some points. I'll just read her comments. There are no current negotiations which have been started per my discussions as of 6/10/24 with NNCIL. Per an email received from Paula McElwee on 6/10/24, CC Erica McFadden, Ed Ahern, and Lisa Bonney. 1, this bill cannot duplicate which counties a Part C center serves or hand them to another provider. 2, ACL determined that the entity in question does not provide all core services, so is not a CIL. 3, the DSE, not the SILC, determines whether an entity is compliant. For discussions with the SILC, Nevada CILs have recommended that for this spill cycle, the Part B grantee discussions be removed until the issue can be researched more thoroughly, as we are concerned about duplication of services with federal dollars. She then goes on to say, per the quoted comment above, ACL determined that the entity in question does not provide all core services, so it is not a CIL. Therefore, should not be cited as a CIL in the current spill development. So what she's referring to is the section where it talks about our CIL being working towards compliance and being in negotiations with NNCIL regarding services. I think I probably didn't word that correctly when I went through and revised it. And I do understand where Mary's coming from in that regard, because they're not yet in negotiations. That's the intention, is that there will be negotiations. So I can definitely remove that part. And I do agree with her suggestion to rephrase the first sentence where it says, the Independent Living Network in Nevada consists of the Statewide Independent Living Council, SILC, 2 Part C centers for independent living, CILs, 1 Part B supported, one Part B supported organization working towards Section 25 compliance with the DSE, and leave it at that. So does everybody agree with that part of it being changed, and then removing the currently in negotiations part?
This is Lisa Bonney for the record. I actually think that I think it's weak to say that you've got somebody who's working towards something. I think it should be 1 Part B grantee, because there's a difference.
Although they are working towards Section 725 compliance, so that's not incorrect.
But I think that, just my opinion, I believe that until they are something, you can't write them into the spill as wanting to be something.
I see what you're saying. So does everyone agree that I should just remove that whole section? As the part that says 1 Part B supported organization currently in negotiations with NNCIL, and just leave it as the SILC, the Part C centers, and the DSE? That sound okay to everyone?
No, not really. I realize that everyone wants to write me out of the spill completely. But the reality is that I am here. And I need to be acknowledged that I am here. I also take offense by the fact that people think that we are not providing all of the core requirements for a CIL, because we are and have been for the last 25 years in compliance with those 5 things that are needed to be a CIL. And basically, we have been a CIL for the last 25 years, but we have not been acknowledged. We have tried
Dee Dee?
very hard to be acknowledged, but we haven't been.
Dee Dee, may I make a suggestion? This is Dawn Lyons. So further down, it does say the Rural Center for Independent Living, or RCIL, was evaluated for 725 compliance by the DSE in federal fiscal year 24 and established compliance for federal fiscal year 25. The suggested change would be to add established preliminary compliance. I do think that with that sentence in there, it does acknowledge that your center is has preliminary compliance and that you've been evaluated by the DSE and that plans are ongoing. So I don't think it's removing you completely by taking out the section above that includes you in our network, because technically, if ACL thinks that we need to do more research and studies before we can include you as a Part B center, then we really can't include you in the network. And that does make sense. As frustrating as that is, it does make sense to me. So we're not taking your center out, we're just defining it differently in our executive summary, and you are included in there.
Yeah, well, it's nice that I have that one line, but I certainly wasn't included in any of the negotiations or any of the meetings. And what about, you know, the situation where we always say, you know, the saying goes, it needs to be, we all need to be working together. And I feel like I'm really being left out in the cold. That's the way I feel. So, but go ahead.
No, this is Dawn Lyons for the record. I understand your feelings and are justified. I mean, we were told one thing by ACL and now we're being told something else. And it's very frustrating. It's frustrating for everybody in this situation. But based on, aside from our feelings, based on what guidance ACL has given us most recently, it does make sense to not include you in the list of who's in our network and to refer to you as being evaluated for 725 compliance and establishing that preliminary compliance, and that we are moving forward with working on negotiations in the future, right? That's our plan. So I think we are including what's appropriate, and I do understand your frustration, but I just want to make sure that those changes make sense to everybody, even if we have feelings about them differently, that it makes sense to do it because this is the actual guidance we've been given. So if everyone is in agreement with those changes, I will go ahead and make them. I do appreciate Mary's suggestions. Is anybody opposed to those changes?
This is Peter.
Go ahead, Peter.
There was a lady's voice that override mine. I will yield to the lady first, and I'll come next.
Thanks, Peter. This is Linda Vivoda for the record. I understand all of the rules and regulations according to what is trying to be rewritten and understood. I understand that, but you have to work as a cohesive team to be able to make sure that everybody is reached. And to me, working with Dee Dee over the years and seeing other people and stuff, and I'm not naming names, I'm just saying that I have seen where they refuse to even talk or try to talk with RCIL. I'm talking about the northern and the southern CILs, and I don't honestly. It's not a preference of a person who I like or who I don't like. I'm just saying this as a entity that's on the outside looking in, because honestly, I don't ever see NCIL coming down here to the Carson area or the outlying rural areas and doing any work. And that's just my honest opinion. And I do see RCIL that has been struggling and working and providing for these people out in this area. And I feel that that one little line is basically pulling her back instead of making her move forward. But I also understand that there is an investigation going on. There is more studies or whatever that needs to be going on. I just don't want to see something good go to the wayside and due to other people not wanting to or share or get along with each other, because basically we're all trying to serve one provision to the public for the disabled, the aging, the homeless, the you name it. We're trying to serve that to them. And what I see is just fighting amongst people that don't want to share. And I don't. Okay, I'm going to stop there. It's just that I don't see where people are getting along, and I really feel bad for people that are struggling trying to get as far as they are, and for so many years. So kudos to those that have made it and done well at it, but don't forget those that are in the middle. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Linda. Peter, were you ready to go?
Yes, just for my own understanding, could you read that sentence or paragraph that you indicated will be suffice or sufficient to indicate our support for RCIL that you said is somewhere in this executive summary? Could you read that for me, please?
Yes, the Rural Center for Independent Living, RCIL.
Where is that? Can you show it on your screen? So
you
I
want
was looking for it on my list as well. I have the information in front of me, but I couldn't
It
find it.
looks like it's in light.
It's
in light purple.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
The Rural Center for Independent Living, RCIL, was evaluated for 725 compliance by the DSE in federal fiscal year 24 and established preliminary compliance for federal fiscal year 25.
And you're thinking that that would be sufficient to show our support for RCIL?
No, it's just to show that they are included in our executive summary. We do have other support in our goals and indicators for RCIL that we will get to later. And it's not like we took them out of our bill. We just needed to clarify that there was more work to be done before they could be included in our network as a Center for Independent Living.
I understand, but since it's the executive summary, and sometimes people don't go beyond the executive summary in terms of looking for reasons to support or otherwise. Is there a way we can insert in that paragraph or that sentence the extent to which we as SILC believe in the services based upon their history, the service that they're providing, and how important that has contributed to the disability community. Something like that, maybe not exactly in those words, but make it very clear up front that we have, there's no doubt in terms of our support and recognition for the RCIL, for the services that they have provided to our community.
So actually, Peter, this is Dawn Lyons. That brings me to the next suggestion from Mary. And there's a sentence.
Don, if you don't mind, this is Lisa Bonney, before we start moving on.
Well, we're not really moving on. I'm making a point that from what Peter was saying, what we could do to satisfy that is basically Mary was wondering about the sentence below in gray here or in purple here that says SILC will support RCIL to the best of our ability with the intention of gradually moving fiscal support from the state independent living program to RCIL over the next 2 spill cycles, or if and until the SILC can negotiate the receipt of innovation and expansion funding in its place. That was something that I originally missed when I was revising it, when we had to make the revisions because RCL couldn't be considered a Part B center yet, technically. So rather than taking that out, changing that sentence to describe our intention of how we are going to do a study, and we're going to move forward with the intention of negotiations regarding services and the areas where they should be with the centers, and how, you know, what might be established based on the study findings. I could do that and include RCIL's name in that, and that way it shows our intentions. Is that what you're talking about, Peter? Would that satisfy what you're
Yes, something similar to I was thinking something in more affirmative instead of will. SILC instead of will, we do support. So take out the will and so SILC support our RCL and believe that with the gradual moving, whatever else that could happen. I'm just saying that if we as a body, as members, believe that they have contributed significantly to and will support, and we do support them, it could be stated very clearly and affirmatively that there's no question as to where we stand on that particular issue.
We can't, this is Dawn Lyons, we can't say that they've done this or they've done that until we have the study results to show for that. So we can't.
Understood.
But we can say that we support them in the work that we know that they're doing, and a further study will support, you know, for the future negotiations.
Understood.
You know what I mean?
Understood. I default to you, Dawn.
Okay, does that sound okay? And Lisa, did you have something to add?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
This is Lisa Bonney from the Northern Nevada Center for Independent Living, for the record. I would like to address what Ms. Bavoda, I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm bad with names, Linda had to say. I felt like that was a very personal attack. This is not a forum for a personal attack. I think that there is a real misunderstanding on where NNCIL is working, and if she would like to visit our website or have a conversation with our staff, we can inform her of all of the places where we're working constantly in Northern Nevada. Our operating area is every county except for Clark County. So I really am hoping that we can keep these discussions not personal, and you know, moving ahead and a little less editorializing. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. This is Dawn Lyons. You know, I appreciate your additional information where Linda can look up some information about your center. I think that's helpful. I do think that she has a right to her opinion, and that because she is a SILC member, she has a right to express that opinion. I didn't feel like it was a personal attack, although I do see how your feelings may have been hurt by what she perceives. But I do think she does have a right to express that. But I can appreciate, you know, where you're coming from, and I do appreciate the additional information. So as far as all of this section is concerned, between what Mary suggested and what I suggested for the change to the sentence about RCIL below, does all that sound acceptable to the SILC? And should I go ahead and make those changes? Or does anybody oppose those changes?
All right. So move forward.
Okay.
Victoria Eschner, aye to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Vicki. Oh, my screen just went black. I thought I lost you for a minute. So,
If I may, John, this is Peter again for the records, and I had some thoughts pertaining to the executive summary as well, the contents and some of the wordings and terms used in the executive summary. I thought because you were already there, but I will wait until you finish the point of the that you're on, and then I just ask you to come back just for a few minutes on some points I want to raise on language.
Why don't I just go back and you can go ahead and
Okay, and that's what I was thinking since we're already there, and I crave the indulgence and patience of our members and audience as well. So as I was looking at the executive summary and just some language used, and especially when you take it to the sentence, it starts with the SILC are the primary organization, and when you take it to that, if you can find that, it's
yes, right after this
yes,
suggested change here.
Yes, and so you see the SILC are the primary organization from which consumers establish independent living plans if so desired. I'm concerned about the general use of the term consumers, and the reason why is that as you look at our mission, we're talking about persons with disability, Nevadans with disability, or disability community, and so the term consumers is a little bit broad, I think, especially with reference to our mission and our service population, which is the disability community. So my suggestion is to consider changing that term consumer to make it more specifically related to the disability community, and the term that we can perhaps use there as is referenced in our mission is Nevadans with disability.
This is Dawn Lyons, Peter. While I can appreciate your dislike for that generalized term consumer, it is an actually widely accepted term used in the independent living community to refer to the disability community who participate in independent living. I don't know how anybody else feels about changing that. Does anybody else want me to?
Before we take a vote on that, or maybe expand, I will also draw reference to the second page. And this is, as I read it, I thought, maybe that's where it starts. If you look at the second page, and there are different terms being used to apply to the same community. We have used the disability community. We have used just blankly communities. And in one case, we use underserved communities. And my thoughts are that as you look at these different terms, which was intended to be referring to the disability community, it could be misconstrued that we're talking about different things. For example, again, there's a sentence in the second page, starts with underserved community will be I think it's, let's see if I can read it exactly. Underserved communities will be the IL Nevada primary focus when expanding outreach efforts. And so my thoughts are, as we're talking about underserved community, that can mean different things to different people. And so my thoughts are in order to keep the conversation specific to the targeted community that we serve, I would suggest that we, in spite of the term consumer being used by others and elsewhere, so for this document, which is an authority document, to really reflect the preferred term used when we're talking about our service population, which is Nevadans with disability.
Jennifer, go ahead.
Hi, I just want to share that I love how Peter thinks. Sorry, that was personal commentary, but I feel this way, like coming from education, which is the, role I serve here on the SILC. We think of children and youth with disabilities and we try and put people first. And I have the same reaction, Peter, that you had when you read that, because I work really closely with vocational rehabilitation and they refer to folks as clients. So I think putting people first and Nevadans that we can all agree on and be proud of, I love that idea. So that is just my 2 cents from the education realm.
This is Dee Dee Formaster for the record. I have to say that I have always hated the word consumer because it reminds me of the little yellow dots that are eating other things up. And I do not consider my clients people that eat up services. I consider my clients as people who are reaching out for a better life. And I have always hated the word consumers because it reminds me of someone consuming something else. So, and really, what is the definition of consumer?
Everybody.
John, for the record.
Go ahead, Mary.
I love this discussion. It was close to 30 years ago that the independent living movement was just getting its starts. We were in the grassroots of developing so many things, starting with the Rehab Act and moving on to ADA. But it was at that time that the decision was made, what do we call ourselves? Who are we? What are we? Are we a patient at the doctor's office? No. Are we a client at VR? No. And so at that time in the independent living movement, the leaders of that time and the followers decided that they wanted to call themselves the consumers of services provided by centers for independent living. That made them different. They could go to any place. Let's say they went to Walmart and they're a customer there and they're the client, the patient, wherever, but they are a consumer of Center for Independent Living Services, and they saw the services being set up for them. So that's the old language from the old movement. But in the people first language, the younger people have started saying, well, are we consumers? And they've decided they want to be called individuals with disabilities. When you're writing any document, it's hilarious. You have that verbiage and you have to repeat it over and over and over. So I hope that gives you some history of the word consumer and how it started and how it's outdated. But that is what the independent living movement started out with, to promote the independent living philosophy.
This is Dawn Lyons, and I just realized the time. So after Mary's description there, I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. We'll take 10 minutes and come back at 3:14. Sorry about the delay in the break.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Good conversation about the term consumer. John Rosenlund actually sent me some information on the difference between the definition of a client and a consumer, being that a consumer is, or rather a client implies someone who buys something, implies a long-standing relationship. Law firms, marketing agencies, healthcare. Customers is a person who buys goods or services from a business. A customer suggests a one-time sale. Whereas consumers is someone who buys goods and services for their personal use, or someone who eats or uses something. Consumers are usually thought of as the end user, a person who actually uses the product or service. So what's the difference between a customer and a consumer? A parent who purchases diapers from a store is a customer, but their baby who will use the product is the consumer. Consumer is more impersonal and often refers to the use of technological products and services, paid or not. So I think he was just giving some background on the reason why the disability community chose to use the word consumer. the independent living community chose to use the word consumer in addition to what Mary said, but I can definitely go back through and change consumer to persons with disabilities or the disability community as appropriate, depending on, you know, where it states that. Let me go ahead and share my screen again, and I'll bring that up so I can. Oops, that's
and John, this is Peter.
Yes.
Just for record, and it's true. I agree with John. John makes some good points regarding client, consumer, and customer. I understand that, but in this case, we are talking about a specific target population, and to avoid any confusion about or entitled to the services who we are focusing on, and to avoid commingling our service population with other need population, I think it would be good for this document to reflect as our mission state, our target population, namely Nevadans with disability. And however we coin that, or we interpret that to reflect that population, I think it would be good for this document as an official document presenting the policies and foundation of what we stand for as an organization. So I hope others will admit that the broad term consumer is good, but then of course that includes babies and the diapers and purchasing at the store. And this is, as much as we care about that segment of our consumer population, the document that we are writing here is specific to our disability community. So it is on that basis that I suggest that as you look at the many areas where we have different terms, all of which it appears intended to be used interchangeably, they are speaking in some cases to different segment of our society or community. And so I think to avoid any misinterpretation, or to make sure that our service population knows that this is the document that we're talking about in terms of the services for them, there should be no ambiguity.
I think I know what might help, Peter. This is Dawn Lyon, sorry. In the instructions, it has definitions for those different terms. I can include those definitions at the beginning of the spill. I can just include the sections where it defines those different terms so that it's clear when you're reading through the summary, so that we don't have to define it each time we use a different term, if that makes sense. Does that help? Because I think in the matter of time, or in light of the time that we have, being that this is a last ditch effort to approve what changes we make to our spill before it is due at the end of this month, which leaves us no other time, unless we are late in turning it in, to have another meeting in this to discuss this. I say we talk about this further in other meetings. In our next SILC meeting, we can include this on our agenda to discuss the terms and how we'd prefer to discuss them, and maybe do a little research on what those definitions from our federal agency provides for us, to see if maybe we can talk to them about that too, if that's what we'd like to do. But as far as in getting our spill done this time, would that satisfy what your concerns are, is to include the term definitions prior to the rest of our spill?
No, I can understand a glossary that will show different in term, but specifically, and if you need to take a vote on this, then we will. I can make it so move a motion to, but my thoughts are that as we're looking at this document, and I hope there's no insert of pride in authorship for the document as it is written. This is our only chance to discuss it openly because of public law, to discuss all these things in the public. So So this is the only time we have to discuss it.
Well, we had other opportunities before. We've had months to
Yes.
design this bill.
Yes, so my point is that since this is the last time and we're putting our last best eye on it, and so you're getting the best feedback from everybody here today because it's a single subject conversation, I thought even if we had looked at it broadly before, now we're going to be very micro and specific, critical in our feedback to you so that you can put the best document forward. And so it is with that in mind that I suggest that the terms as used in the executive summary to describe our service population accurately refer to them as disability community. And as you said before, are persons with disability, depending on the form and use of the word where it applies in this passage.
Okay, so you're proposing that I change everywhere it says consumer to disability community or persons with disabilities, depending on which is more appropriate?
Yes.
Does that
And
mean
also, as you look at the term underserved communities, I think we're referring to the same community, our service population, our disability community.
underserved communities is also one of those terms that is defined in the spill definitions prior to it during the in the instructions itself. That's one of the reasons I suggested I could include the definitions prior. But that is a different term. I mean, would you suggest I say underserved communities within the disability community will be the IL network's primary focus?
That would be my suggestion, or simple, be consistent with, instead of saying underserved community, with simple, make it consistent with the disability community will be the IL network's primary focus, because it is. So although underserved communities may be appropriately used in other areas of our written documents, in this case, because really underserved community can mean other things. So if we were to say simple, that the disability community will be the IL network's primary focus when expanding outreach efforts,
well,
that would be correct.
We're being more specific in that
Yes.
section. We're being
Yes.
specific on purpose. Like
Yes.
we're obviously the disability community is our primary focus, but the underserved communities within the disability community is what we're talking about in this paragraph.
Yes.
So I'm going to add.
If you need to have that clarification, yes.
Yeah,
I will yield the mic at this point.
Does everybody else want me to add that and to change the language from consumer to disability community or person with a disability, depending on which is more appropriate throughout the executive summary?
I agree. This is Linda Bay voted for the record.
I agree. This is Dee Dee Formaster for the record.
I think I need 2 more people to agree for it to be a vote yes.
This is Jennifer. Both Obiama and I are not voting members, but we just wanted to share in the chat that we are both in support.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think Mary Evil Sizer, you're a voting member. Do you agree?
You know what, for the sake of time, I will agree. We just need to move on. You might want to throw in there too, Don, the latest term is individual with disability. So I vote yes, let's just move on.
Great. Okay, thank you. I think I got that, the voting members I needed on that. Maybe just Vicky Esner, do you agree?
This is Vicky Esther. I've always been in favor of consumer as an individual with a disability myself, because we do have the reason it was founded, as Mary mentioned, I was in the background, and part of that knowledge is there's other individuals that also are part. So I'm I like the word consumer and have always liked it.
Okay, let me just go through our list of voting members here who are present. We have Vicky, Dee Dee, Linda, Peter, and Mary. And we have a quorum, but out of 5, we need 3 yeses out of that. No, yeah, we need 3 yeses out of that. So yes, we do have a yes vote on changing consumer language to person with a disability. So I'll go ahead and do that. All right.
With all due respect, if I may, as we're leaving that section, I just need to, I feel, do a little bit of reframing. I just wanted to say that in working with Part B centers, this is not in any way personal. Our skill right now is so critical. It's a time for the Nevada SILC to develop a roadmap on how we're going to develop new Part B centers in the future, new Part C centers in the future. It has nothing, it's nothing personal. It's nothing against anyone. It's time for us to move into the future, to develop our policies, procedures, and protocol, how to establish new centers. We have the wonderful opportunity of setting the best roadmap to be encompassing, to involve all that want to move forward with this, to work together. But in order to work together, there are, the policies, procedures, the stipulations, the audits, the reviews, the reporting, the data collecting. All of that is critical to our movement, essentially, because that's how we develop trends. That's how we're sure of ourselves that we are giving the appropriate feedback on how to help our community and how to help our consumers, how to help our individuals with disabilities, how to help everybody. This is critical. It's nothing personal against anybody. It's just we want to grow, but we want to grow in the right way. We want someday a lot of Part B centers, a lot of Part C centers. We are so underserved. And if we establish the pathway by doing the research, we can do that now. So we bring everybody with us. This is not a personal agenda at all. It's a way of the future for Nevada. And I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate all that you do for the SILC. And Dawn, appreciate the staff too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. This is Dawn.
This is Dee Dee Formaster for the record. I just want everybody to know out there that I was 725 compliant, and I did accomplish all of the things that were required to become a Part B center.
Okay, this is
I got my Part B center, and then you took it away. So,
Dee Dee, move on. We've got a half an hour left to finish this, and we really need to get through a few more pages here. So I understand how you feel. I think everybody understands. I appreciate everyone's input. And I appreciate Mary's input. And let's just move on to our next issue here that the CILs pointed out to me, or I should say Mary pointed out to me. It's under objective 1A, number 5. SILC will provide 30,000 in federal fiscal year 25 and 47,905 to support the Rural Center for Independent Living in federal fiscal years 26 and 27. Since they're not considered a Part B center, Mary pointed out that this should actually go out as a competitive, what's the word? I can't get to it. Let me see.
RFP.
Yeah, RFP. Thank you. I had to scroll over to remind myself of what it was called. And she's right. So I'll go ahead, if everyone's okay with that, and just change it to support independent living services. And the next suggestion is that she said underserved populations instead of unserved areas. And that's fine with me. So are those 2 changes okay with everyone else? Or are they not okay with everyone else? Does that sound, it's actually really appropriate to put it out for an RFP if it's not going to a Center for Independent Living. or for something that's non-competitive. So we can definitely reword that. The next one is objective 1B. Number 1, RCIL will provide the SILC with quarterly updates in regards to Part B funded IL services. Again, since we're not sure that RCIL will be the winner of that competitive RFP, we can simply put the IL in the IL sub-awardee will provide the SILC with quarterly updates, and we'll just put it that way if everyone's okay with that. Does anyone have a problem with that change? Okay. Under objective 2A, indicator number 2. Oh no, we already went through that. That was the DSE questioning if they had a question about our staff being through the DSE or through our 501c3 status in the future. And I basically said we can't determine that at this time because we still don't have our 501c3 status. But as soon as we do, we'll make a determination and let them know. Number 6, it was the change in regional representatives to regional coordinators. And then under objective 2B, that was another DSE thing we've been through already. Let me find another from Mary or the CILs here. Sorry if I'm making people dizzy. Here we go. Under the narrative section of our financial plan, it was just a clarification again where it says 30,000 will be provided to RCIL. We'll just change RCIL to the sub-awardee for independent living services, just to be consistent. And then even though Cheyenne suggested to put the Part B eligible center in process under the listed centers for independent living, Mary recommended removing that because they really aren't officially a center for independent living yet. So I agree with that, even though it's difficult to take them out personally because I think people should have their contact information. But it does make sense that since they're not yet approved by ACL or anyone else, technically that we still have to do some more work before we get to that point, that we do take them out of that list. So everyone okay with me removing that in this section? It's just because a section specifies existing centers and they're not technically an existing center yet. So
makes sense.
And then as we scroll down, this is under section of the existing centers again. It's just another area where we talk about their locations that they cover, and so coverage areas would need to be taken out as well as the I just reasonably forgot to take this part out when I was going through my revisions because there were so many sections that included them that I missed a few. So this was another one of those that I missed.
So very quickly, this is Peter, for the record. Go back up to the heading, that list. And so we have existing centers. Is that mandated heading, or could we put existed? Is that a mandated heading?
Yes, that's the template that we're given.
Oh, okay.
Can't change that. So yeah, unfortunately, because of what the heading is, we do have to remove RCIL from those sections. So I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm going to remove those sections that Mary highlighted because I had missed them previously. Here we go under expansion and adjustment of network. Here again, just for consistency's sake and because to be more accurate, we'll change RCIL to the sub-awarded IL provider. And then let's see, what did Mary say? For clarification. Oh, did you add that? No, I'm not sure I understand what you mean by for clarification, Mary, for this section that says Nevada's 2 centers will share the Part C. Are you just saying it's just for clarification?
Just for clarification, if there's a funding loss in the state of Nevada, the way that it works is ACL is the one that issues out the funds. And so if there's a loss, the 2 centers are more than willing to share the loss 50-50. But how that works is ACL is usually the one they mandate. They send us a letter and they say, this is what you get and this is what you get. They don't allow us to share it. They are the funding administrators, so they tell us what we're going to do. But we can leave that in there because we are willing, whatever losses are there are equal.
Okay, okay. Does everyone understand that? And then before we go further, Linda put in the chat, so we are removing RCIL from our spill. No, we're not removing RCIL from our spill. We simply have to remove them as being listed as a center for independent living until we do our due diligence according to our ACL, our federal authority. But we are mentioning them in our goals. We're mentioning them in our executive summary as, you know, what our intentions are. And we are, I mean, I don't know who else is going to qualify for those independent living services that might apply, but, you know, I have a sneaky suspicion that RCIL is going to be sub-awarded those, but, you know, I guess I can't make that prediction yet, but that we have to do those changes the way we have to do them because of ACL's guidance. So I hope you understand that, Linda. It's not that we want to remove RCIL from our spill at all. And we are not. We just can't include them as a center for independent living at this time.
Do we have any other sub-award services other than RCIL? This is Peter for the record.
We have in the past, actually. We, you know, SILC has sub-awarded funding, IL funding for programs that Voc Rehab has done in the past. We've sub-awarded to, you know, off the top of my head, I can't remember all of them, but we've sub-awarded to a few different partners in the past. And if those other partners, you know, if they qualify under our sub-award terms, then they can apply for sure.
Don, this is Lisa Bonney for the record. Isn't this the statewide independent living program considered a sub-awardee of Part B funds through the SILC? Sorry.
Say that one more time.
Isn't John's program a sub-awardee?
Well, no. Actually, his program is a SILC program because, like, as he stated earlier, the AT for IL program through the state of Nevada was begun in partnership with the SILC. The SILC was one of the founding entities or organizations that created that program. And so, you know, along with AT funding, it's just that the state has decided to go ahead and support it with additional funding.
I see. Well, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Dawn, if I may, you're right. Over the years, the SILC has had several sub-awardees and several projects. But the difference is that with the sub-awardees, they were never highlighted in the SILC. A sub-awardee is an award to deliver a specific good or service that benefits the independent living community. So when we have Voc Rehab, we barely mentioned, you know, they do 22 students. And so that's the difference, that we have a sub-awardee.
Right. Right. Yeah. Thanks for that clarification, Mary. Yeah. So basically, if we say we're giving money to RCIL, we have to justify why we're not putting it out for competition, because other organizations may qualify to apply for that IL funding as well if they qualify for, you know, the same kinds of programs that we're asking to be covered. So we have to take them out because they are not considered a center for a Part B center. The reason why they were put in that way is because we thought they were considered a Part B center at first, but since ACL further defined that they cannot be included as a Part B center in our spill, we have to change that language.
Exactly. And then what our ACL is asking, take this opportunity build that roadmap so that you can develop the proper pathways to build and grow Title B centers, Title C centers. They do want Nevada to grow, but they want us to have systems in place and the protocol in place, and we will. The SILC is growing tremendously.
Obioma, are you able to mute your microphone, please? Thank you. This is Dawn Lyons. Thank you, Mary. Again, like I said, we have to do our due diligence, and establishing that process is an important part of moving forward. So we need to do our due diligence, and we need to make sure that we understand our data before we're moving forward with, we don't want to seem like we're just deciding this or that willy-nilly. We need to make sure we have the data to back it up. So anyway, moving on. For any additional Part B funding received, the SILC will add the additional funding to RCIL for IL services. That was also under the condition that they were a Part B center officially, and since they're not, I'm just going to remove that. If that's okay with everybody, I think that may be the last of the center's comments, but let me just double check. Oh, one more. Oh, yeah. So under the list of centers for independent living that are going to sign this bill, I had only listed the Southern Nevada Center for Independent Living preliminarily. Honestly, I didn't include, because at the time I still wasn't sure who was going to be included as a center for independent living when I wrote the draft of this. So yes, of course, now that we know that it will be the Southern and the Northern Centers for Independent Living that will be signing our spill, I will include the Northern Center for Independent Living as well under that section, and including them in the signature lines as well. So that concludes all the suggested changes from the DSE and the CILs. And according to what we went through individually, all I need now is a motion to approve with the changes discussed.
For the record, this is Mary Evilsizer. I make a motion to approve the changes as discussed in the current spill.
This is Peter Whittingham. I saw second with a modification that's subject to minor typo or grammatical errors.
This is Dawn Lyons. So actually, we don't have another time to come back and discuss any grammar errors. So if there's a grammar error, I will do a spell check and I will make sure that there aren't any. And if one happens to be included, well, I mean, there's not much we can do about it, right? Because we have to submit this by the end of the month. And so by open meeting law, we can't come back and go, oh, okay, well, we'll reapprove now that those grammar changes, right? But if I find any, I will change them, I promise. And if you find any, you let me know so I can change them, and I'll make sure that they're accurate. And I appreciate that clarification. But
yes, I'll send some to you.
Thank you. In thinking about what the motion was, Mary, can we also amend the motion to include the approval for submission to ACL once those changes are made?
Yes, and do you want me to add revised bill, Don? Because this is our latest revision.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, for the record, this is Mary Evilsizer. I make a motion to approve this bill per the recommendations as discussed and voted for fiscal year 25-27, correct, Don?
Yes.
Okay, and I amend the motion to include for submission to ACL upon completion.
Victoria Esner, I second the motion.
Any discussion? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote for who's present. Vicki Esner.
Aye.
Dee Dee Formaster. Do you abstain, Dee Dee?
She left.
Oh, okay. Linda Voivoda,
Aye.
Peter Whittingham,
Aye.
Mary Evilsizer.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for getting us through that. Really appreciate it. Now we can submit on time. Hopefully I can get all those changes made quickly. All right. So moving on to agenda item number 6 for possible action, discussion and approval of future meeting agenda items and meeting date. Our next SILC meeting is scheduled for July 10th and 11th. It's our annual meeting where we hold our elections for our chair and our vice chair. So one of my recommendations is that anyone who has nominees, whoever they would like to nominate as chair or vice chair, treasurer or secretary, to please get those nominations to me. And then Julie also had a suggestion, which she texted me. Let me just pull it up. Maybe she put it in the chat. Let me look. Okay. She said Christopher Hovis from Southwest Airlines to discuss traveling for people with disabilities. He spoke to the DD Council. So so I wanted to mention that she made that suggestion. Does anybody else have any suggestions for our July meeting?
Dawn, for the record, I don't know if there's enough time to do this by July. If not, but we could try. Perhaps we could get ACL to give us a recommendation, like Ed Ahern or one of the project officers, to provide us with, just mini training on how to what is the protocol, what are the policies, what are the procedures to set up Part B centers. That way we can get started on learning and following all guidance.
Sure, I can talk to our ACL rep for that.
Yeah.
Let me see who had their hand up next. Obioma?
I think Obioma.
Oh, sorry, a little bit of a delay there. I know that we need to move on with the discussion, but I wanted to ask, as a non-member, no, that's not what I meant. I meant to say as a non-voting member or individual, can we do a recommendation or nominate people?
This is Dawn Lyons. Yes, absolutely. Anybody who is a SILC member, including non-voting members, can make nominations for those officer positions within our council.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Dawn, for the agenda for next meeting, I'm suggesting that we do something tangible about our training program for new members. We've talked about that some time ago before, but I think maybe a good time to dovetail into Mary's recommendation for training. Maybe good to talk or put together our plan for a cohesive, complete training program for existing members, but especially new members to SILC.
Sure, I can put a agenda item to discuss our current onboarding training. How's that?
Yes.
Okay. Is it just our onboarding training that you're talking about, or is it just training in general?
Training, not just onboarding. Thanks for correction. It's not just onboarding, but training for existing members in all aspects of their responsibilities and duties as members, and the extent to which they can advocate for or perform their duties as advocates for the General Disability Committee.
Okay, sure thing. I wrote it down. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Well, other than our standing agenda items, I'm sure we may come up with something else. I think there was a young man that Jennifer Kane recommended to speak, and I think he agreed to speak, but I can't think of his name. Dave White Jr. Thank you, Jennifer. I know he wanted to tell his story. We wanted to invite him to do so. So I think that will be on our next agenda. And I think with that, I can go ahead and go to agenda item number 7, which is ending public comment. Let me go ahead and read that blurb before we start it. No action may be taken upon a matter raised under public comment period unless the matter itself has been specifically included on an agenda as an action item. To provide public comment telephonically, dial 1-253-215-8782 US Tacoma. When prompted to provide the meeting ID, enter 929-904-1434 and passcode 707-401. Comments will be allowed at the beginning and end of each day and will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Persons making comments will be asked to begin by stating their name for the record and to spell their last name and provide the secretary with written comments. Does anybody have public comment?
For the record, this is Mary Sizer. Just want to announce real quick, Disability Awareness Day will be October 5th. And I've started sending out the invitations, and they're going out as we speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Did anyone else have public comment?
Yes, this is Peter, for the record. And following up with Mary, an announcement. I want to announce and invite anybody living in, any of our members here, living here in Vegas, the Down Syndrome Organization of Southern Nevada will be proud to present our own rendition of the Lion King, staging the Lion King. We have more than 40 cast members who are all from the disability community. And they're also not just upfront characters, but also behind the scene as well. It will be staged on June the 23rd, it's a Sunday, at 5 p.m. at the Kitty Rodman Auditorium at Opportunity Village, the South Campus at 6050 South Buffalo. I just want to invite all our members here to come and see some of the things that even parents don't believe that their children can do, and it's just a wonderful thing to see. So if you are available, come out and join us and cheer on our members as they present themselves as in the Lion King production on stage by the DSOSN Performing Arts Program. Thank you much.
Thank you, Peter. That sounds delightful. Does anybody else have any public comment? Okay, seeing none, I think I can go ahead and adjourn this meeting. It's 3:54 p.m. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate all your input. I know I sound frustrated sometimes, but I do appreciate everything you guys contribute. So thank you again. Have a great evening.
Thanks. Mary, can I give you a call or give me a call? Mary?